Great.
Okay, so we have 48 years worth of data from Southwest Puerto Rico. And I've actually learned some wonderful things to put in papers from the previous speakers in terms of the damage to the forest and that sort of thing. I went to Guanica on a field trip and ran net lines in the manner that was taught to me by John Terborg and Robert MacArthur. And these were long lines of nets strung end to end, generally 16 nets, which is about 200 meters. As I say, we ran a net line in 72. I went back in 73 and 74 and just got enamored with the place. Plus, we ran into a really severe drought. And so it gave me a chance in my early papers to talk about the effects of drought on bird populations in the tropics. Because we were getting a lot of winter resident birds, when the Partners in Flight situation developed in the late 1980s, some of our data was very interesting, or at least interesting to other people. And so we were able to get funding first from Mercedes Foster and then from the IITF to expand the net line. So since 1989, we have been running 9 net lines. They're about 200 meters each. So it's about a mile of mist nets that we run for 3 days from dawn to dark. And judging from where we catch birds and seabirds, this is about a 25 hectare sample of birds. And you can see the net line here on the slide. Dawn to dark, we wait for the bats to go away, and then we try to get them closed before the bats come out. And birds are captured, measured. Actually, Judith and the more recent students do a whole lot of measurements that we didn't do, but banded and released. So we have a long-term capture, recapture study. Southwest Puerto Rico does not have the history of hurricanes that the northern part has gotten. And actually there's some interesting stuff. Although there have been hurricanes at Guanica, George and Maria are the only ones that seem to provide much in the way of damage in the 48 years that I've been going back there. Okay, so we run the net lines, constant effort mist netting the same place. And this is the sort of pattern that we have to talk about. So on the upper left here, we have the green line is a residence. And this captures, per net line across time. So from 1989 through 2000, let's see, till about 2 years ago. And so you can see there's some variation in what happens here in numbers of captures that we get. We have residents on the left, and then on the right we have winter residents. And as you can see, winter residents are an important part of our total captures. During the good days, we used to catch 15 to 20 winter residents per net line, and which is pretty amazing. And as you can see, if you look at the residents where we were getting on the order of 75 or so birds, we were finding that about 20–25% of our avifauna was winter residents. Now, what we're going to talk about today is primarily just the capture rates, because that's what we have the easiest data to look at and the simplest. We have been able to do now with the development of these really super sophisticated mathematical models, been able to do a whole lot of other things in terms of determining survival rates and making population estimates. So here we've got captures of toadies over a 20, 30-year period, and you can see where George and Maria occurred relative to the capture rates. And then on the right, we've converted this using Mark to population estimation. So, you know, so those are a little bit different, but as you can see, they're not all that different. And it, you know, obviously when you have, it allows you to catch birds over long periods of time. And, you know, when you catch a bird years 1, 3, and 5, you assume it is there for 2 and 4 and that sort of thing. It's pretty simple stuff. We are also able, part of the reason that you have such a small difference between capture rates and population estimation is that these birds live a long time in Guanica forest. We have just tons of birds that are 8, 9, 10, and 12 years old. We have a toady that was at a minimum 14 years, 7 months old, and that sort of thing. And so it's, you know, a lot of the birds we catch in the same net from one year to the next. And it's interesting to note that the long distance migrants that spend the winter there, for almost all of those that we catch regularly, we have 10 and 12, 10, 11, 12-year-old birds. So it's a pretty interesting way to follow. So now let me go, can I go back? So here, not only do we show the captures, then we show when George's occurred and when Maria occurred. And, you know, both of them caused damage to the forest. But there were 2 very, very different hurricanes. And it's nice to have been asked to be part of this symposium because it got us to look at, you know, I didn't start the project, you know, actually I didn't start the project for any good reason. If you had told me in 1972 that I would still be going to Guanica in the, you know, 2018, 2019, I think I would have considered you crazy. But I did, and now Judith is continuing it. But these 2 hurricanes, both of which did damage, were very, very different. George had serious winds that covered nearly all of the island, pretty much went down the backbone of the island. Heavy range, followed the winds. George, for the Guanica canopy, which is short, you know, dry scrub, took most of the canopy, broke the branches off, and dropped them on the ground. So as I joke with my friends, had you done your forest measurements using the DBH, you know, diameter breast high, essentially the hurricane didn't do anything to the forest because all the trunks were pretty much there, but it was the branches and the canopy that was on the ground. And so it was widespread at Guanica. Guanica really got hammered. So what we had with regard to birds was that after the hurricane, we found that the bird numbers had gone down. Maria, on the other hand, although Maria was so devastating, and it's just amazing to watch, to have seen the damage there. Maria, you know, didn't have near as much effect at Guanica. So it tended to be protected. The Guanica was protected a little bit by the mountains, and Maria started to kind of drift a little bit to the north. So the Guanica had quite a little forest, and in fact, some of the earlier slides showed that there was quite, you know, showed that there was undamaged scrub at Guanica, you know, as a result of Maria. So what you found then was we had increased captures after Maria had occurred. So so what we think was going on is that for George, the habitat damage reduced the captures, and the birds were probably there, but we just weren't catching them as much. As I said, all of the canopy was on the ground. Birds had to fly higher. A lot of them were flying over the nets and that sort of thing. And so here you can see bullfinch and a number of examples where after George, canopy's down, the birds are probably there, but they're
There's just a warning, we have about 1 minute left.
Okay. Maria was very, very different. Maria just demolished most of Puerto Rico. And so what we think happened with Maria was that when the birds came back, and a lot of these were birds that probably came back to the same mountaintop that they had been for years before, but because of the damage, there was no habitat. And so they moved down into Guanica. And so here you can see that we had these tremendous jumps in capture rates. We caught a ton of birds, okay? But we caught them because they were moving down. So what it looks like is that the birds themselves, don't get hit that hard by the hurricanes, but there's something going on, because while we talk about, well, this wasn't so bad, that wasn't so bad, but you'll notice that all of the birds, all of the resident birds, most of the winter resident birds are showing these incredible declines, okay? And we just today sort of were looking at it and said, you know what? It looks like something happened after George that changed the whole situation. And so these birds have been declining like mad for about 20 years. And we don't understand that, but look at that. So for black and white warblers, we went from 40 to 5. So incredible declines. And so I don't know what the hurricanes, how a hurricane could have triggered that. Whoops. But it's an interesting data set, and certainly the hurricanes are going to probably have an effect that's very, very individual depending upon how the hurricane hits that particular habitat. And if you want some more info on these dynamics, Judith is giving a talk tomorrow. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Dr. John Faaborg.